Welcome to Connecting the Dots, a non-traditional legal program with your host and trusted advisor, Liz Myska, your guide through the web of life's dilemmas.
Welcome to another edition of Connecting the Dots. I'm your host, Liz Myska. And I'm pleased, as punch, to welcome my guest, who is the president and CEO of the Carroll Center for the Blind. Greg, I will let you introduce yourself.
Well, thank you so much, Liz. It's an honor to be here this morning. My name is Greg Donnelly. I'm president and CEO of the Carroll Center for the Blind in Newton, Mass. And I've been with the center for just about 5 years now, after a 19-year career at the Mass Eye in Boston.
So I want to give my audience just a little history here. I was deemed legally blind in 2008. I was diagnosed at Mass Eye in 2005, but there was a lag time before I was deemed legally blind. And when I was deemed legally blind, all of a sudden it seemed like everybody in the industry comes marching out. And to me, this was a real affront, because I went from being sighted and all of a sudden everybody's banging the drums with, offering their wares. So I had to learn who's who. The Mass Commission for the Blind, that's the state agency. And then there are other organizations and agencies, one of them being the Carroll Center. And what I learned, because my instructor, who instructed me on usage of the cane, which is called orientation and mobility, which, again, who knew? I didn't, actually was an itinerant from the Carroll Center for the Blind. So he would go out into the community and tutor individuals like myself who were newly experiencing vision loss. But I understand the Carroll Center itself, many people of all ages go and have a prolonged stay at the Carroll Center. So illuminate us about the Carroll Center and what you do and the history and
Wonderful. So the Carroll Center truly is a special place and service provider for not only Massachusetts residents, but well beyond, New England, across the country, and internationally. Very well renowned as a rehabilitation center for residential programming on our campus in Newton. But we're unique in a way that we do serve all ages and all stages of vision loss, and that's important for people to know. So when they do have a loved one, a friend, a family member, a colleague losing their vision, it's a simple resource. Contact the Carroll Center for the Blind in Newton. And our services go well beyond our campus. They, as you mentioned, are also community-based. And we serve, individuals in their home, young children and teens in their schools, young adults in their college or university settings, and individuals in the workplace. So wherever a blind or vision impaired individual needs services, the Carroll Center can support them where they are and where they need those services most.
I'm thinking back the 13 years that I've been legally blind, that sentiment that I mentioned, not knowing how to articulate what I needed, not knowing what I needed, and having the hands-on assistance of someone, but also having access to people who were going through the same thing. And I would imagine that your programs, whether they're community-based or on campus, that's a large component, where people who all of a sudden find themselves in this predicament have an opportunity to voice their, what they're feeling.
Absolutely. I think one of the benefits of our programming, for an example, the summer program, is children and teens. And last year was very different for all of
Yes.
us because of COVID. And the pent-up demand for our services at all levels and ages are certainly, we're seeing that constantly now. We have 60 blind and vision impaired children signed up for our summer programming, which started last week and starts again today, and runs for another 6 weeks or so. And it's amazing the support that families and parents are giving these young children and teens to have an opportunity to get together and socialize, which everyone's missed in this environment. And often, we hear from our clients of different ages that social isolation is often more disabling than vision loss itself. So the importance of socialization beyond the classroom, beyond the education and training that's happening in all the different environments and programs. At the end of the day, we have a residential program for during the summer. It's on and off campus. We rent 2 dorms from LaSalle University down the street in Newton. Because of the number of children and teens that need to be served. We have 22 residential beds on campus, and then 2 full dorms to accommodate the full 60 children and teens that we'll be serving. But it's after their learning programs and education that they're getting and training during the day, those life skills that everyone needs. Especially, when we're serving mostly newly blind and individuals new to vision loss that they're going to continue to experience over their lifetime. And the socialization aspect of peers, younger and older, because there's a good mix of age groups that we're serving. They learn from one another. They support one another. They laugh with one another. They cry with one another. We see all the emotions relative to their own personal stories, some with wonderful family support, some that really don't have the same level of family supports. So they learn a lot from each other. And what we have learned is that many of them become lifelong friends. And this happens in our adult programs as well.
You're reminding me, I'm mentoring a young woman who's in her 3rd year of law school, and her employer, this young woman was born blind. And so this young woman and I have monthly phone calls and just get to know one another. And I had asked her about her family life. She's the only one in her family that is blind, and she had 2 brothers who were very athletic. So there was hockey and there was lacrosse. And she said when she got to be a teenager, she didn't want to go on the the family pilgrimage to the hockey arena. And she said she valued the time she was by herself. She said, but then I ended up at the Carroll Center. She said, and we did fun things. I mean, she said I think she said they went surfing and they went sailing, and she said things that I don't think I would have ever been exposed to, or that my family would have exposed me to, because of the fear of, it's dangerous and we don't know how to do it. So we just had that conversation about a month ago, and she was lauding the fact that opened a world to her, and it has made her extremely social and much more confident that whether the group is sight impaired people or sighted people, that she feels she can hold her own because she's had these different experiences.
And that's so true. So many of the individuals that come to be served by the center, fear everything. Fear learning Braille, or, wow, you have a wood shop. Isn't that dangerous?
Right.
Manual arts and sensory arts. We do archery during the summer with the kids, and individuals say, archery?
That arrow was pointed.
What's your safety record? But the sky's the limit for these, young individuals or older. individuals, seniors that we serve. I have a great story where an 80-plus-year-old client was really nervous about doing some of the woodshop activities at the Carroll Center. And upon her graduation, during her speech, she said, "I'm so proud to announce that I am now the only individual in my household that can use a power tool safely." And so something that she feared,
Right.
she actually ended up loving.
Right.
And the same happens with fencing. And fencing, as you might know from your orientation and mobility training, was implemented, a long, long time ago by Father Thomas Carroll, one of our early founders, and an individual by the name of Robert Amendola, where they incorporated fencing into our orientation and mobility training because it's a physical activity. It helps with balance and spatial awareness,
Right.
and how they tied that into the instruction, that is still happening today. That course of instruction still exists, and some people fear it. Like, I really don't want a fence. That's really not for me. And then at their graduation, they say, that was my favorite activity
Right.
at the center. So it's just the willingness to learn and try,
Yes.
and which opens up, as you said, confidence building, hope, and a piece of the independence that they gain throughout the process.
Right. Now, how do you keep, when your graduates leave, how do they keep that going? Because oftentimes when we talk, you mentioned social isolation. I think during the pandemic, and I don't want to, generalize, but it was easier being visually impaired because, quite frankly, we're used to being socially isolated. We can't just jump in cars anymore and,
Sure.
and tool off like we did when we were sighted. So for me personally, the pandemic was not as grueling and cruel as I think it was for able-bodied, particularly sighted people who were used to just, you know, getting in a car and going places and not being barred or banned from going to a place. But I'm thinking, how did people fare, graduates of the Carroll Center programs during the pandemic? Did they laud the skills that they had learned? Like, "Oh, I don't need to be in the same room as you. I can,
Join a Zoom.
yeah, right, and I can talk to you on the phone, or
Right.
so."
Yes, I think they fared quite well. We transitioned last March of 2020, early on during the pandemic. We transitioned quickly to remote training and services. And because much of what we do is related to computer training, assistive technology, and device training, we were already doing it. And the staff are expert at it. Our licensed teachers of the visually impaired, orientation and mobility instructors that often use GPS and navigation tools from a technology standpoint, to our rehab instructors, our certified low vision therapists, and so forth. They're so used to training on different technologies, and we train on the technologies that the individuals actually use, whether it's in school, college, work, or at home, so that we're not training them on types of technology that they don't have access to. We train them on the technology that they have available to them, and that has helped. And we all learned more than we ever needed to know about Zoom, but we knew about Zoom, and we, the Carroll Center staff, one of our staff instructors wrote a book on how to use Zoom. And so we're all natural resources for those that we serve, as well as the friends that are made amongst the clients peer to peer, to pick up the phone, to talk, to hop on a Zoom, to do FaceTime, even though, some have some usable vision, some have no vision. The tools of the trade relative to the technology skills, that really helped during the pandemic. But there's nothing like the face-to-face aspect of not only training, but also having that shared experience and friendship building.
Well, and again, hearkening back to when I was learning how to use the cane, just learning how to use my hands and my feet rather than my eyes, I guess, is the best way that I could describe it, because I was very visual and I would assess a situation by, you know, stepping back and looking at the landscape as opposed to the portrait.
Right.
And again, as time has gone on, because I have a progressive disease, I'm less and less able to do that. So the transition to, you know, don't struggle to see it, Liz. Use you know, your other senses. Use use your limbs. And I think again, when I was learning how to use the cane, you know, I was very tentative because it was all new. It was all new and all foreign, and it wasn't something that I chose to embrace. It chose me as
Sure.
opposed to, but I'm thinking that just rubbing elbows, and realizing spatially, you mentioned spatial, where people are in relationship to you, and thinking, oh, I hear Greg's voice across the room. So I know he's in the room. Now, how am I going to get to the room? And actually, this happened. I was at the Carroll Center when Paul Sainer was the commissioner for the blind, and Paul, I knew Paul slightly, but I wanted, after his conclusion, I wanted to get up and speak to him, and it was so deucedly difficult because the row that I was sitting in were all visually impaired or blind people,
Sure.
and we didn't have a sighted guide, a human guide, and I felt like I got to get up there, but I don't know how to get up there.
And it's
I could
okay
hear-
to bump into one another. We have a lot of individuals bumping into each other as they learn, and they laugh and they work through it. Or, you know, part of it is learning to ask for assistance from
Exactly.
those around you, and then you take those snippets of learning, and then you put them into the real life the next time that happens, and it does build your confidence where, you know, I can get across this room,
Right.
this crowded room. And
Well, it's funny because for me, it's turned into I instruct the sighted on how to help us, the visually impaired. And when I'm doing a training for sighted individuals, I'm using visually impaired individuals, but I'm also using sighted individuals, and I compliment my visually impaired individuals by saying, we were the ones who trained these sighted individuals. We were the ones that said, no, I know certain people guide this way, but I prefer it this way.
Right.
So that there's a sensitivity to not all blind people are the same, and that, again, you and I have been sounding that theme. Some people have been dealing with blindness since a young age or since birth. Other people, it's completely new. So you're not going to learn necessarily all the tricks of the trade, but being able to determine yourself which to pick. And even if, and I'm sure this happens at the Carroll Center, even if you're exposed to something and you're like, well, that's nice, but I'm never going to use that. You never say never, because
Sure.
you may have acquired that skill unknowingly that you are going to deploy it at some point in time. And I would imagine that's another aspect of
Absolutely. Another value that the Carroll Center brings is our great history. So the center was founded 85 years ago in 1936. So we have clients that have been coming to us for 50 plus years throughout, you know, from their early days, you know, as teens or young adults, up until now they're seniors, and they may still be, you know, wanting to live independently at home, or, you know, if they're in any type of assisted living, how can they maximize their quality of life
Right.
in that different environment? And so they're ready to communicate to grandchildren over a brand new iPhone, which
Right.
they never thought they'd have
Right.
or would need, and they've embraced that new opportunity versus years ago, oh, I don't touch those. I
Right.
never use those. But now, to stay connected and knowing that the grandkids and the children use them so frequently that it is a nice way to learn to connect very easily. That happens very frequently. So we have day services where a senior might come in just to learn some functionality on an iPhone, how to use the accessibility features, some of the assistive technologies, and they may come for 3 days of training and then go home, and that's all they want, that's all they needed. Or they could be with us for 4 weeks in a essential skills training program, so they truly can remain safe, independent in their home, continue to cook, manage prescriptions, their finances, and more.
How do people get referred to you, I guess is the
Often
question.
through the Mass Commission for the Blind. We
Okay.
work very close with our MCB colleagues, and they are doing a tremendous job with outreach to the blind and vision impaired community, more so than ever before. There's been recent radio ads and
I heard them.
television ads, and that's because the population is growing.
Right.
Both, individuals that are vocationally, they have vocational goals, or those with non-vocational goals, social rehab clients, and again, helping parents with very young blind or vision impaired children, all the way up to helping family members and the blind and vision impaired that are older and experiencing, progressive vision loss. And so we're all, both providers and the Mass Commission for the Blind. This is a progressive state. It's a wonderful state to live in for if you have any disability. People do come from the Carroll Center from other states and internationally, where they say, these resources that you have here as a provider, we don't have access to these resources.
Right.
So we would, people in this state or that state or this country would be lost without the capabilities of learning these essential skills.
What do you attribute that to, though? Because, and I'll let you answer in a
Sure.
second. Last year, because I'm a networker and I always have my ear to the ground. If anyone says, oh, I have a brother who is visually impaired and he lives in California, I want to meet them, and again, meet them virtually,
Right.
maybe on the phone. Anyway, I had a colleague who runs a company that deals with mobility devices and redesigning people's homes if they've, if they've had a mobility issue, like for instance, installing ramps or lifts or whatever. Anyway, her brother is visually impaired, lives in Pennsylvania, and this woman told me, oh, there's the Delaware County support group. So last year, of course, I reached out to the Delaware County support group and befriended the woman whose name is Glenda Such, actually. And she invited me to participate in 2 of their meetings. So this would have been last May and last June of 2020. And each meeting, the participants, who were by and large visually impaired, not family members of the visually impaired, but visually impaired, they would bring resources. And I remember vividly, they said, oh, there's this place in Massachusetts, and it's called the Carroll Center. And I was like, yes, I know.
Mm-hmm.
But again, they were so thrilled to have found this resource, even though it was multiple states away. And so back to my question, so why in Massachusetts was it just because Father Carroll happened to be here and he was innovative and we jump on the bandwagon, we're like, yes, we need innovations.
Right.
What do you
He was
attribute it to?
certainly innovative, but again, the state of Massachusetts has just a long history of being a progressive and supportive state. In the early days, the center was called the Catholic Guild for the Blind. And the center was known historically for serving blinded vets coming home from World War II, residentially right on our campus. And Father Carroll at that time, he had quite an amount of communication and authority with the government. And after all the veterans were served, he went to the government and asked for financial support to really make the Carroll Center the first blind rehabilitation residential program for civilians in the country. And so that's how we started. And ever since, we've been the leader in rehabilitation programming for all ages over the years. And we continue to innovate, hire the best, most passionate, skilled staff. The staff truly are what make our center. And the outcomes that, employment, academics, just quality of life for the older blind that just want to socialize and continue to live independently. All these different outcomes are because of the devoted team and skilled vision professionals that we have at the Carroll Center.
Awesome. Well, if people need to get in touch or would like to get in touch with you,
The
please,
easiest way is www.carroll.org,
better spell it.
CARROLL.org, or a simple phone call, 617-969-6200. And whatever the question, we can assist those in need at any time and anywhere virtually that we need to provide them with assistance.
And Greg, two things. You also have a store
Yes.
so that you can get canes, sunglasses, bump dots. For those of you that don't know about bump dot, get in touch with me. I will inform you.
Yes, lighting and
Signature
magnification.
guides.
There's simple devices, $65 magnification and $10 lighting that can change the quality of life
Absolutely.
of someone that doesn't know that these simple resources exist.
Absolutely. And the last plug is Father Carroll obviously was Irish. You are Irish. I'm Irish ancestry. So it's that keep on plugging, no matter who you are, where you are. Persevere, and you will triumph.
That is so true. And we just live by our mission. We have so many mission moments. Our clients teach us a lot. Just as much as they learn from us, they teach us. We listen to them. We try to do better. And we listen to the family members. And with everyone together as a community, our success grows.
Absolutely.
We depend on over $1 million from philanthropic donors that have been long-term, even short-term supporters of the center. And with that philanthropic support, we're able to provide all these services.
Excellent. Thank you so much for being my guest today.
And thank you for the invitation, Liz. I appreciate it.
Join me next time for another edition of Connecting the Dots.
Please note that the information provided in this show is not a substitute for consulting with an experienced local attorney and receiving counsel based on the facts and circumstances of a particular transaction. To contact Lizbeth, email her at lisbeth@elizabethlmyska.com or call her office at 508-753-7681. We're online at connectingthedots.lawyer. Executive producers, Lizbeth Myska and Jack Peacock. Producers, John Medberry and Bill Hamilton. A production of Elizabeth L. Myska, JD, LLM, in association with Compliments.